Welcome back to that God Power channel. This is the channel where we're going to unlock the God Power that's laying dormant on the inside of you. But first today, what we're going to do is continue with our breakdown of the book of Acts. And we're on chapter 22. So if you haven't seen chapter 0 or chapter 1 through 21, I suggest you go back and watch it so you can get caught up on the story. Because this picks up right after the end of chapter 21 on a to be continued. So let's jump into chapter 22. Now, if you can remember at the end of chapter 21, Paul was about to address the people because he's getting taken captive. So he wants to address the people that are accusing him of things. So he stops and addresses the crowd, and this is where it picks up. So this is what he says. He says, "Brothers and esteemed fathers, listen to me as I offer my defense." Now, when they heard him speaking in their own language, the silence was greater. So Paul took advantage of that moment. He said, "I'm a Jew born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, and I was brought up and educated here in Jerusalem under Gamaliel. As his student, I was carefully trained in our Jewish laws and customs. I became very zealous to honor God in everything I did, just as all of you today. And I persecuted the followers of the way, hounding some of them to death, arresting both men and women, and throwing them in prison. The high priest and the whole council of the elders can testify that this is so. For I received letters from them to our Jewish brothers in Damascus, authorizing me to bring the followers of the way from there to Jerusalem in chains to be punished. Now, as I was on the road approaching Damascus about noon, a very bright light from heaven suddenly shone down around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, 'Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?' 'Who are you, Lord?' I asked, and the voice replied, 'I am Jesus the Nazarene, the one you are persecuting.' Now the people with me saw the light, but they didn't understand the voice speaking to me. I asked, 'What should I do, Lord?' And the Lord told me, 'Get up and go into Damascus, and there you will be told everything you are to do.' I was blinded by the intense light and had to be led by the hand to Damascus by my companions. A man named Ananias lived there. He was a godly man, deeply devoted to the law and well regarded by all the Jews of Damascus. He came, stood beside me, and said, 'Brother Saul, regain your sight.' And at that very moment, I could see him. Then he told me, 'The God of our ancestors has chosen you to know his will and to see the righteous one and hear him speak. For you are to be his witness, telling everyone what you have seen and heard. What are you waiting for? Get up and be baptized. Have your sins washed away by calling on the name of the Lord.' And after I returned to Jerusalem, I was praying in the temple and fell into a trance. I saw a vision of Jesus saying to me, 'Hurry, leave Jerusalem, for the people here won't accept your testimony about me.' 'But Lord,' I argued, 'they certainly know that in every synagogue I imprisoned and beat those who believed in you. And I was in complete agreement when your witness Stephen was killed. I stood by and kept the coats they took off when they stoned him.' But the Lord said to me, 'Go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles.' Now the crowd listened until Paul said that word. Then they all began to shout, and they were screaming, 'Away with such a fellow! He isn't fit to live!' They yelled and they threw off their coats and tossed handfuls of dust into the air. So they were just basically making another scene because they didn't agree with what he was saying. Like, 'Away with him! Kill him!' So next, the commander brought Paul inside and ordered him lashed with whips to make him confess his crime. He wanted to find out why the crowd had become so furious. Now when they tied him to lash him, Paul said to the officer standing there, 'Is it legal for you to whip a Roman citizen who hasn't even been tried?' When the officer heard this, he went to the commander and asked, 'What are you doing? This man is a Roman citizen.' So the commander went over to and asked Paul. He was like, 'Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?' And Paul was like, 'Yes, I certainly am.' And the commander answered him back. He was like, 'Well, I am too, and it costs me plenty.' And then Paul replied, 'But I am a citizen by birth.' Now the soldiers who were about to interrogate Paul quickly withdrew when they heard that he was a Roman citizen, and the commander was frightened because he had ordered him bound and whipped. Now the next day the commander ordered the leading priests into session with the Jewish high council. He wanted to find out what the trouble was all about, so he released Paul to have him stand before the Jewish council. And that is the end of chapter 22. So basically, in chapter 22, what happened is Paul got a chance to address the crowd. He addressed the crowd, told him who he was. Like, yo, I used to be persecuting people who believed in the way, just like y'all are persecuting me. But then God came and talked to me. He tried to put it all out before them. They really didn't have an ear for it, and they wanted to kill him anyways. And so when Paul told him that he was a Roman citizen, they're like, hold on, we can't whip him right now. We've got to hold off for this. Let's wait. Let's put him before the Jewish High Council to see if he's really wrong. And that's the end. So, to be continued in chapter 23. Thank you for joining me for chapter 22. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Hopefully you got extra insight to the words that you read. And I hope that you like and subscribe this video or subscribe to my channel. But other than that, thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful, excellent, superb day. One thing that you have to remember is that you got that God power.
Loving the God power. I got the God power.
Tapping the source, calling the vibes. I just thank God I'm alive. I just thank God that I'm fly.